All right, continuing on, this is literally the exploded view of the carb. And you see, I take it apart. I'd like to have room because I like to kind of lay out things where they go. You can see these are the fuel inlets that sit underneath the float. The needle and seat goes into the hole there. And there's the floats. And of course, that's the air horn. There's the gasket. And of course, there's a lot more parts in the base of the carb. There's the venturis laid out there. And there's some linkage, and there's the accelerator pump, and some of the bolts that hold the top on, hold the air horn on. The linkage for the accelerator pump. And pretty much that's it. So I like to keep things in order so it's easier to put it back together. I can remember where things go. So next up, we're going to take a look at the kit. All right, here's the rebuild kit for the AFB. So we got new gaskets, new accelerator pump. So you even got some new needles and seats. So we're going to put all of this in. And this is where I got it. Oh, can't read upside down. Mike's carburetor parts. Part number K4265. And thank you, Mike, for making this affordable. And we'll move on from here. Okay, this is usually where I like to start the reassembly. And that is with the air horn and getting the floats and the needles and seats back in shape. Now, one thing you're going to note here, and this is kind of important, you're going to have two different styles of needles and seats you could possibly say. You're going to have the old style like I have here, which has basically is a two-piece or a three-piece assembly. It's got a little spring, a little plunger, and it goes into this body. And then you're going to have another one like you'll see here that came with the kit, which is a solid piece right there. And that's meant to actually hook on a little S-clip and hang from the float. Use the style that came with your carb. So yes, you do to get extra parts. So we're going to go ahead and do that. First thing I usually do is there's this little filter screen. You'll see this is the fully assembled here. Little filter screen on the end of the inlet, and that just kind of twists out this, and you just kind of check it, make sure it's clear, there's nothing in it, blow through it, whatever, and then just kind of screw it back in. Okay, so there you go. Just kind of put it back in. The gasket is already pre-installed. More of a washer than a gasket. It's metal, and then it's pretty simple. You just kind of screw it back into the little hole you took it out of. To get these out, I found just use a really huge screwdriver because it's slotted at the top. Sometimes it takes a bit to catch. Make sure you don't cross-thread it. Take my monster screwdriver here. Try to get it in those. You see, you can just kind of do that. And you got the seat installed. And repeat for the other side. Good and snug. Now, since my needle and seat is the kind that has the little two-piece plunger, that's what we use. And you can tell them because one has a hook on the end and one is just kind of flat. Plus, it's two pieces. Oh, also, you can tell this is definitely a wear item. Here's the old one right here. And you can see the discoloration. And here's the new one. And these are ethanol friendly, by the way, so they won't break down with the oxygenated fuels we use these days. So we'll just take this part. And it's real simple. It just drops right in. There it is. You see it's spring-loaded, so We've got it in there. Okay, I kind of had a dull moment. Before we put the floats on, we need to put the gaskets on. And what's important is you need to look at your old gasket. This is the old one. You need to match it up so that all the holes and ports and such are the same, because these are not the same gasket. See, for example, my new gaskets, I have two, have a different layout. And see, like this one has the larger holes here. See, on this one, that matches. On this one, it does not. So we have the larger expanded holes as opposed to this gasket, it's got small holes. So we have to use the right gasket for this carb, or we'll have issues with covering up air bleeds and things like that. So we select the proper gasket and just go ahead and install it. And this is, of course, done before you put the floats back on. Don't be an idiot like me and forget to do that. Then all we really have to do is put our float back on. There's no clip or retainer or anything. It's just kind of the axle, as I call it, just kind of floats through here. And there you go. Kind of just like that. And that's what it should look like when it's done. Take note, the axle or bar or whatever you want to call it should be in front of the tab, not behind it. If you put it behind it or somehow finagle it that way, you're doing it wrong. And you're going to have constant float flooding. So that's the way. All right, float drop. Float drop or float level. First thing you need to check is float level. And to check float level, you invert your air horn like this. I'm going to put it up here, make it a little easier to see. And what they say for this particular float level is, and this, you want this measurement to be 5/16. Now they give you this little paper ruler, which is in 30 seconds. Well, 5/16 is 10 30-seconds, just double all the numbers. And you check it at the edge, right there at the edge of the float, to the top of the gasket. And that's how you figure that out. Now this one is actually a little low. To adjust it, we actually take it, and don't put any pressure right there on this. You just take it, take a little piece of, a little bit of needle nose pliers and put it on there, and then adjust the float up and down as you need, but while holding that. It's literally going to be, you breathe on it, it's going to be, because 16ths are such a small increment. Just check them both and do it for this, and do it for both sides. Again, don't just bend it here. For one thing, you'll knock it way out of whack anyway, and you'll screw up your float drop, which is going to be bending this tab back here on the float. So remember, a little pair of needle nose pliers here, and then just gently bend the float up and down till you get into spec between the end of the float here, right there, and the top of the gasket, and that gets up to 5/16, which on this gauge would be 10 30-seconds. So, all right, float drop is going to be measured with the air horn level, which is like it says, what's dropped, and we're going to measure between the gasket again and the top of the float. We should have a measurement of 15/16. That measurement is done by bending the tab in the back of the float. Again, gently. Also, when you're done with this, don't lay this thing down. Don't put this down on the table with these floats once you've got them adjusted, because you'll knock them out of whack. So 15/16, which is going to be 30 30-seconds with our stupid little gauge we've been given. All right, one thing I'll tell you about adjusting these floats is you're going to want to remove the float when you're doing the float drop. And this tab right here, very minute adjustments. Um, you can get away with doing the float level with it attached, but you'll want to take it out and do the float drop with the float out and just do very minute and just keep trying. Try to get it within 2 or 3 tries though, because it should be pretty close when you get them. Get it right out, but you know, this thing's only brass. It's only gonna take so much jerking before that tab breaks off. Then the float's pretty much useless. So, okay, now that we're done fighting the battle of the 32nds of an inch with the float drop and float level, next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually go with this accelerator pump jet, these discharge nozzles. Now, the thing to know here that's important is in the kit, you're going to get both a new needle and a check ball. Use whatever came with your carb. In our case, our carb came with a needle. Now the needle simply goes down this hole. Just drop it down in there. What'll pick it up is the pressure from the fuel pump. Or sorry, the pressure from the accelerator pump, which is going to be over here. Put the gasket on, put this back on. We should be good to go. Again, match up the gasket. Here's the old gasket. And this is the one that matches and fits. Looks a little different, but it's the right one. We'll see, we'll just place it right here. You can see that everything lines up. You can see we're using the T15 screwdriver. This is the accelerator pump discharge jets. Nozzles, whatever you want to call them. The diagram calls them jets, just jet discharge. But T15. Okay, again, we're going to start putting the venturis back in. Before we do that, though, again, we need to match up the gaskets. So like this primary, let's find the gasket that looks most like this. This is from our kit. That one looks pretty close, doesn't it? So let's see if it fits. Looks like it fits to me. All the passages are cleared. So with that, you can actually place the jet back in, or the venturi back in. That'll be tightened up with the, I believe, the T20. Is it T20? T25. Yeah, T25. All right, we've completed putting our venturis back in. Just get those tight in there. Don't over tight them. I don't want to screw it. You don't want to strip out the hole. This is only aluminum. We got those in. Got the gaskets in, and you see I got the accelerator pump in, and a new spring that comes in the kit. And if you look down there, there's actually a little catch for the spring to actually seat into. Maybe I can get better light on it here. You can see it there. Make sure it's hooked up into that, and then just the bottom of this fits into the top of the spring. Just like that. Now we're just about ready to put the top back on. Okay, we're getting the top back on. Just be careful when you're fitting it. Get it over the accelerator pump here. And start hooking up your linkage on this side and on this side. Make sure there's no interference. You shouldn't have to force anything. I'm just going to have a little spring tension from this pump pushing up. That's about it. So Remember, we had some issues getting this accelerator pump linkage off. So before we tighten down the horn on the carb, we need to get this hooked up. Put your S-hook in here. Make sure you can actually turn this accelerator pump to line up the little hole that's drilled. And then the linkage will go into a little hole down here in this arm. Can't really see it. Yeah, that's maybe a little better. But it just fits in a little hole in this arm down here. You're just going to kind of manipulate to hook it up. And also the choke linkage, when we put the horn on, takes a little clip. Now the kit does come with some clips, but I usually don't need them, but it's nice to have them. So just put that there. And there's one up here as well. You can see there. So onward and upward. Okay, so it was actually easier to put the linkage in from the bottom first and then manipulate it up at the top here. You can get it to go. I should also mention, remember I mentioned the issue with this potentially, this screw backing out. I put a little bit of Loctite red on there. I got a Loctite stick over there. Also, other note here, you've got multiple positions that you can put this accelerator pump linkage into the arm. There's three. I usually use the middle one. Get more or less aggressive of a pump shot depending on where you put that linkage, but I like to go right in the middle. So onward. Okay, time to put we got everything tightened up, put back. Now, when you're tightening these, do these just like you would do an intake manifold, crisscross. Put them in, cross, and then just in, out, in, out, in, out, and out. Don't just go. Just crisscross and tighten it down to get an even seal on that gasket. You see I've got this vacuum line reconnected here. So this basically, I think it's a bowl purge. The next time I'm going to do a little work on this, which is kind of separate, but we've got our linkage hooked back up. We've got our accelerator pump working here. So I'm going to go ahead and put the second set of metering rods in here. If I can get this thing loose. Just flip that to the side. You have a spring. It fits inside of this. And all you got to really do is get it to seat so it doesn't pop up. There's a hole for the rod. Oops. Well, you got to get the spring down here, not down there. Get the spring down here, and then get the metering rod and assembly down there, and pretty much just get it to where it's level. See, like right now, it's kind of sticking up. But you just kind of press it down a little bit. You'll feel it go down. Then you flip up this thing, keep it down. So. Okay, so we got these back on. This is the T15 Torx again, just to screw that down. Again, they'll bounce up and down that spring. Just wiggle it around. It'll eventually go down and seat. You should not force it. You shouldn't have to force it. When it lines up right, it'll just kind of go. It's not a big deal. The other thing I did is I just put the idle mixture screws back in, and the starting point is you screw them all the way down till they're just touching. Don't force it anymore, just till they're just touching. Then bring them back. I usually like to start with about 2.5 turns back. And let me show you what a turn is. You see where the flat is here? Okay. This is half a turn. Okay. This is 1 turn. This is another half. This is 2. This is another half. Same on the other side. And that's what I start off for a baseline. Of course, you'll have to do your tuning or whatever later, but this is a good place to get the car running. Because right now, if you tried to start it with them all the way down, it wouldn't start. It would starve. So look at the flats here. This is half. This is 1. This is half. This is 2. This is half. 2.5. So now we'll move on. Okay, one thing we're going to do is we're going to see if the fuel pump's working. So what I'm going to do is I got a bucket and I got a remote starter, and I'm going to see if we get any fuel flow out of this. Here we go. Yep. Looking good. So we know our fuel pump's working. And it's mechanical, so yeah, it's going to pulse like that.